Welcome back to Discourse, the weekly occult and esoteric podcast hosted by myself, Abammon the Great, and Dr. Anna Stone. This week we're discussing the modern research that's gone into the art of channeling, its history, and how this skill relates to the occult practice. So breathe in, young magus, and let the work begin. Three, two, one. All right, guys, welcome back to Discourse with myself, Abammon the Great, joined as always by Dr. Anna Stone.
Hi.
This week we're going to be talking about channeling.
And mediumship, because it's the same, hand in hand, right? It's allegedly the same thing.
I haven't been able to find a good definition on the difference between the two. But I think I found a good definition on channeling. But
Okay.
This episode, we're recording on a Tuesday morning.
Yes.
So there might be a little bit of background noise. We usually record weekend nights.
Yeah, like at midnight.
Yeah, but I can hear the birds chirping and that kind of stuff.
Our gardener doesn't come today, though, so that's good.
Yeah, the gardener comes on Thursdays.
Yeah.
So, yeah. The vibe in here is a little different, though.
It is, but it's okay.
But we got the plant right there.
But we do.
Which I'm super stoked on.
Hopefully it doesn't die. If it's not in the shot anymore, it's probably because it died. Because we can't keep things alive.
We're really bad at gardening.
Yes.
Well, we dealt with a spirit one time that was specifically said it could give us a green thumb.
Oh, right.
Or it could make everything die. And we promised to get it a cup.
Oh, is that the one?
And then we didn't get it a cup.
Oops.
And the next day we went out and we bought a bunch of stuff for a garden. And we planted it, and everything
was ruined.
Yeah, it got dug up by animals.
Destroyed. Dug out of the ground. It was crazy. I forgot that.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
It was really funny because we were all proud of all these plants and vegetables that we planted, and then the next day, everything's dug up. I'm like, what happened here? Was it a dog? Was it a skunk? And then all of a sudden it hit me as oh my gosh, remember that spirit we talked to?
I totally
it said it would kill our garden. We
did
never
not
got it
remember that. Oh my gosh, You're right though.
Yeah.
Shit. Well, I guess we got to get him a stupid cup.
Yeah, we still owe him a cup.
But so this episode, this topic is really, fascinating to me for many reasons, but predominantly because I do this but I didn't know I did it until quite recently in the scheme of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't aware that I was channeling information. I thought I was just reading cards for the longest time. And I think in 2015 is when I found out that I was channeling. And it scared me to death because I was like, because to me, that means I'm possessed. And it really concerned me greatly. But then I started to think about it and I was like, well, how could I be reading tarot cards since I was 12? And now I'm 36 at the time. And I still don't know them. I still don't know what they mean. I know the majors, but I didn't know the other cards really, And how am I getting accurate information if I don't know? And then I started to record myself reading cards, and then I started to see it. And I had no idea I was doing that. And it scared me. But then I kind of realized, I've been doing it. Nothing's happened. So I guess it's fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what did you find as the definition for channeling?
So I think specifically, the big difference is what's the difference between possession and channeling.
Right.
And so possession is involuntary, and it is it has to do with actions and behaviors.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas channeling is a conscious connection and you're accessing information.
Well, sure, but I was not consciously doing it.
Yeah, so maybe you were possessed.
Great. My biggest fear. So the definition that I have for it is a practice of allowing a spirit or other entity to take over one's body, partially at least, in order to convey or receive information. And so, and possession does that. We hear a lot of stories about people that are possessed that say things to the exorcist or something, about their personal life that they couldn't have known. So there's that. But, so that's still accurate. But it is I guess maybe the act of reading cards was my permission.
Yeah, your conscious contact.
A subconscious,
yeah.
like maybe my decision was subconscious,
Mm-hmm.
and the cards were like the conscious act of it,
Mm-hmm.
I guess that would explain it. But but mediumship is connected to this because that's how mediums get their information, right? I mean, how else is a medium getting information unless it's channeling?
Yeah, so I think what I've noticed, at least for a lot of mediums that are untrained, and I'm talking about somebody that's a natural medium that doesn't really focus in this realm, that's just something they live with.
It just happens.
And I think that is when, spirits randomly show up in the living room and, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Where they're like outside of the person trying to talk to them. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that it's with mediums, it's kind of being a medium. It's a conduit. The spirits know they can access the living through you.
Yeah,
right?
it's an unfortunate thing sometimes because there's some way they are aware of who we are, and they do show up, and it is quite frightening at first. I mean, actually, I'm always frightened by it. But so because the word like a medium comes from the Latin medius, right, which is literally the in between. So it's the conduit between both worlds, right? You're the in between. So
and channeling can involve a lot of different things.
Oh yeah,
and I think later on in the episode I'm gonna relate it to something a little.
I'm excited.
Crazier, but channeling is basically information, right?
Yes.
So it can come from a spirit. It can come from an angel. It can come from a god.
Okay, so let me get this out. Let me get the stats out of the way. Okay, let's get the stats out of the way. So I for this episode, I did a lot of research. These are all actual like scholarly articles here. These are actually you can link them in the description, right? If you guys want to read these. Some of them are pretty dry, but they all had actually really good information in them regarding mediumship and channeling and the study of it, because we've been studying this since the 1800s scientifically, like legitimately studying it since the 1800s. It kind of fell off for a while because after, and we'll talk about the spiritualism movement, but like after that kind of imploded on itself, that died down, but it's come back with a vengeance, right? Like it's really being studied right now, which is really awesome. But there are some facts here about channeling and like where the information comes from, right? Well, where they think it comes from, because nobody really knows, right? We don't really know where the information comes from. But where was my stats sheet? Oh, here it is. Okay. So there was 40,000 people that were surveyed for this that identified as a medium or channel. And the average age of onset for channeling ability is about 21.7 years or age 40. So it's either young adulthood or midlife, okay? Mostly when women, but that doesn't mean it can't happen to men either. 65% of those 40,000 women said that the voices were internal, and they were aware that the voices were coming from their own mind, right? 31.7% thought they were both internal and external, and 3.2% thought they were external only. 45% of people that experience the phenomenon of channeling or mediumship experienced it before they started to become spiritual, right? So it was happening to them before they turned to any kind of religious or spiritual practice. 24% said it happened after they became religious or spiritual, and 26% said it was at the same exact time. And the stats, the demographics of the people are, again, the ages about 21 to 22 or 40, and most of the people will identify as spiritual but not religious. And but they turn to, so the interesting part here is that a lot of the debunkers out there that say this is fake think that, or will claim that this only happens to people that study the occult because they studied the occult, because they've conditioned themselves to believe these things. When in fact the vast majority, like almost 70% of people, experienced it before that and then turned to the occult and studying spirituality without religion, right? Because of the experiences that they were having. It's not the other way around. So, but they would lead you to believe it is the other way around. That's not true. And so people that channel typically are not as reliant on other people's opinions of them as other people are. And they have a higher level of personal identity that is not able to be changed easily by outside influences. So typically not a follower person, not somebody that just goes with the trends, you know, somebody that already has a robust sense of self is more likely to have this happen to them. So those are the stats. I thought those are interesting. But the point is, like, most people think it's coming from the higher self or the collective, right? Only a small percentage of mediums or channels think that it's coming from ghosts, spirits, or angels or aliens. Okay. Those are like the categories, or other entity, which is, you know, could be negative, but the majority think it's coming from some like kind of, well, like a pool of information rather than a specific deity or entity. Right. And when we talk about, like, let's say like the famous ones, right? Which say what you will, we could talk about it a bit, but not too much. Like John Edwards or Sylvia Brown, right? These people that do these cold readings, like, you know, they just say something and whoever in the audience picks it up, you know, like they run with it. I've seen at least Sylvia Brown I've watched, and I watch how she does it, and I'm just like, okay, interesting format. But this is one of those things where, like, that's a cold read, right? That's you're throwing something at the wall to see what sticks, and somebody will identify with it, right? Because people that are there are wanting to identify with it. They want to connect with somebody, right? That's passed. So they're more likely, they've conditioned themselves to identify with something that might be kind of a little bit right, and then they think that it was very right. Does that make sense? You know? So, but that's not the kind of mediumship or channeling we're talking about here. We're talking about actual...
not a TV psychic.
Not a TV psychic.
I already have an idea, an opinion about this, right?
What?
I've expressed it to what happens to performative psychics, right?
Well, yeah, so like share it again.
Well, so I believe that maybe these people do have an ability, but when they turn it into something that's performative, they have to lean on cold reading, and they have to lean on this kind of performative aspect, because really that ability is not as controlled as people like to
pretend it is. That's
right?
100%.
And so it gets into a place where it's like, okay, now I am a public figure and I have to do this on command, and then it just turns into a cold reading. Not to say that there aren't charlatans and chicanery that happens, of course, that's a huge thing, but I definitely do, after my experience with mediums themselves, I started from a place, even though I was an occultist, I started from a place where I viewed psychics and mediums as all charlatans and chicanery, which is very strange because I've always been into the paranormal. I believe Bigfoot experiencers, you know, like I choose to believe those people. I'm like, I believe that you experienced something, and I couldn't do it with psychics. I was like, oh, they're all just frauds. And then after I met enough psychics and mediums, and they were very normal people. A lot of them are not into it as a career. They're not into it to try to feel special. For a lot of them, it's like, there's this thing that keeps happening to me, and it's disruptive to my daily life. Yes, exactly. And then I started to, it kind of opened my eyes that just how common the ability is, and it's just not spoken about. And then also, okay, then I can see how when you turn it into a performative thing, how it puts you in this place where you have to show an audience something, right?
Yeah, and that's the hard part, because like for me, when I get, there will be times where I'll have somebody book a session with me, and I just am not on it. I'm not on it. Like, it's not working for me that day, and I will say, hey, I won't take their money. I will reschedule them for a different time, because I know that it's not happening right now. And I don't know why it doesn't happen right then, but it usually can, but I can't imagine being on a big scale like that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, like, number one, it would be, if I was able to do that, it would be overwhelming to be able to hear anything, right? And second of all, like, it would just be like, I wouldn't be able to, how would you tell that that's the right person if it's in a crowd? Like, I just, it's really hard. You know, I feel like that would be really difficult to do. But basically, so you thought that when I was reading your cards the first time, I was going to be full of shit.
I was I had just had my opening my mind. I'd been hanging out with a intuitive kind of psychic Guatemalan woman who was exposing me to the more like feminine circles, female dominated circles of magic, because I was in male centric spheres for so long.
Yeah.
And she was kind of opening my eyes. I had always struggled with scrying, and she had actually taught me to do it. And it was like, after so many adepts within the lodges, had given me instruction, and I was never able to do it. It took this kind of, woman that was like an intuitive psychic to teach me how to actually do it. And that kind of like opened my eyes, like, oh, I should be listening to what these women are saying, instead of just blocking it off as, people that do
hysteria.
I don't know what it was. It's weird, Yeah. It's very weird. It's just because the reputation that psychics have is we think of the TV psychics, and then I was very well educated on spiritualism, and that was, I was pretty against like Blavatsky and the spiritualist circles because of the whole cheesecloth stuff.
Right.
And,
so let's talk about that. Let's get that elephant out of the room, right? So spiritualism, right, started in 1848 with two sisters, right? Margaret, aka Maggie, and Catherine, aka Kate Fox. And they were two little girls that were bored, and allegedly. And they started having these knockings happening in their house. And their mother was religious and easily frightened, easily worked up. And so to get the story goes that to get a kick out of it, they were just, this is what she said when she did not, like when she said it was all fake. Okay. So she, before she said it was all fake, the story was that, they started hearing rappings in the house, and they started getting messages from spirits. And they told a neighbor about it, or the mom told a neighbor about it because she was scared. She wanted help. And then that neighbor went and told other people, and it became a thing, and it became spiritualism. And they were really famous for their séances that they did. And they would be able to produce these crazy sounds that were coming out of the ether, allegedly. And it garnered so much attention that really famous doctors and psychologists, or the, beginnings of psychologists, would come and try to debunk it, in fact, like the, Center for Psychical Research, founded because of this. So they were trying to debunk it, and they would go to the house and they would hear these noises, and they would see that they were sitting there not moving, and they didn't know how they did it. Well, in 1888, Margaret Fox was at the music hall in New York, the Academy of Music Hall in New York, and she said, it was all fake. I lied. Sorry about that. Right. But then before she died, she recounted that and said, no, the Catholic Church made me say that. They came to me and told me that they would give me money. They would make sure I was able to retire and be comfortable if I would just go ahead and say, no, this was fake, and come up with this story about how we just wanted to scare her mom and all this stuff. But then, like, on her deathbed, she said that was not true. So we don't know, right? But because of them, this whole industry of the seance physical mediumship, right, which is what they call it, physical mediumship, meaning a physical manifestation of spirit is present, right? So they would do the cheesecloth thing you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So what was that?
So it was something that, once again, this leans into the performative aspect, right? And it was something they would, in order to demonstrate ectoplasm, they would be in a dark room. The medium would be in there doing the like thing, right?
Yeah, I don't think I do that.
They would string cheesecloth out of the medium's orifices, and then everybody in the Victorian dudes and ladies were like, oh my gosh, it's ectoplasm.
Where's the fainting couch?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so it was this like performative thing, and there are pictures of Helena Blavatsky with the cheesecloth strung out of her nose. And for those in the audience, she was the main driving force behind the theosophy and the theosophical movement.
Yep.
And so that immediately, like, I completely disregarded Helena Blavatsky and theosophy because of that. But now I've kind of come to a more neutral place where it's like, okay, this woman might have been a spiritual adept, but she was also, as a day job, making money doing this performative thing.
Right.
So I think it's the difference between, because there was, for example, Franz Barden, he was a magician and he was really into these high adept yogic practices, but he was also a stage illusionist.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh,
and so
that's
it was like, well, he's on stage, he's doing magic illusions, but then behind the scenes he actually does believe in this stuff and tries to.
Interesting. Because Henry Slade, which was kind of he's like the most known fraudulent spiritualist, right? You know. And he was also a stage magician, illusionist, and he worked with Blavatsky. So first, and he was 1835 to 1905, and he was just caught red-handed like a lot by scientists. They would just be like, I caught you, you know, and he just kept doing it. Because the thing is, back then, the Victorian peoples in that era didn't want to know it was fake. They were all about it being, they don't care, you know? So it became entertainment. But so the physical mediumship is the one that's frequently found to be fraudulent. Like, you know, the other thing, so Henry Slade was famous for his slate writing, okay? So that's a practice of where they would have these little mini chalkboards like they had in the school, you know, in the classrooms back then for kids to write on with chalk. And they would have it there while they're doing their seance, and they would cover it with a box, okay? Or like have it out of sight, all right? Okay, like, you know, and then after, you know, they'd be like, and then they'd hold it up and be like, look what the spirit wrote, you know? It's like, oh, we're real hands like during this whole thing. So fake, right? But, and then they'd have spirit messages, okay? But, you know, interestingly enough, that makes me remember another case that has been on TV documented pretty well of I'm sure you probably know about this one. I think it was, I can't remember where it was located, but they Polaroid camera and they kept taking pictures and like words would come on the pictures. Do you remember that
I
case?
haven't seen that,
Oh
no.
Man, this is old. So there's a case where they were doing this in this house. They would take a picture and there would be like in literally in the cheesecloth ectoplasm stuff, be written out words. And it got like so much attention that Kodak film had their own scientists come out with sealed rolls of film and a new camera and did it in the house, and they got the same results.
Oh,
You don't know about this case?
No.
Man, it's like called spirit writing. It's the spirit writing ghost. And it was, but the funny thing is the guy's house, who it was an author.
Oh, yeah.
So it was like,
Maybe it was a promotional ploy.
But I don't know, but like
yeah.
Kodak, there was a lot of people involved in this one. And, you know, then Joel Nickel was like, I can't explain. I think he couldn't explain it, but like, still thought it was fake. So that was interesting to me. But like physical mediumship, more than likely is fake. More than likely it's going to not be real. You know, the slate writing thing is hilarious to me. But that, so yeah, Blavatsky was running with that same crowd. So, you know,
for a time.
Yes.
Until she moved to India and was focused on, you know, Buddhism is the answer or whatever.
Yeah. But like, this is not, channeling is not new. It's not from the 1800s. The prototypes of it existed far back, way back before this, right? So what do we know about the actual start of it? Like, I mean, it's been going on since the dawn of time, like since we've been here. Yeah.
So, I mean, as the earliest civilizations, the role of temple priestesses and oracles, you know, and that's almost always a woman. Right.
Yeah.
And it's something that's deeply ingrained into Western belief and Western ideas. I think in tribal cultures in the East, it's a little more malleable, but within Western civilization, and that would include Egypt, Mesopotamia, all, you know, Greece, there's this belief that's ran with us that women somehow have this connection to the other side that men don't necessarily have as frequently. And so the woman's role in the mystery religions as a temple priestess or as an oracle was being that channel, being that conduit. And there was a kind of esoteric belief that it was because of the feminine gateway, from which, the soul first enters the material world. And then there was a kind of esoteric belief that it's through the feminine gateway you return.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I get yes, like every culture has some form of channeling mediumship in it. And mostly it is women, except you're right. In the East, it does look like it was men. Yeah. But there are 3 cases though. Like there's 3 cases back, like to jump back to the spiritualist movement. There's 3 cases that still have not been able to be debunked, right? So there's Lenora Piper from Boston, and she was extensively and intensively tested by William James and the Cyclical Research
Society, the PRS.
SPR, judged it as genuine. They were like, okay, this is legit. Then, there's Palladino. I can't say her first. I don't know how to pronounce her first name. Palladino was caught cheating though more than once, but still was deemed to be accurate. So that might go toward your theory about the performative aspect of it.
Yeah. So I think when we first met, there was something you told me, and it was when I was talking about how ridiculous Bigfoot was. I was constantly talk crap on Bigfoot people, but I was just obsessed with like listening to Bigfoot stories and that kind of stuff. I'm like, these people are so dumb. And you said to me, you were like, you're going to believe in one thing, you got to believe in it all. And that kind of like shifted my perspective, because I've always been to like believe people's experiences when it comes to occultism and aliens and ghosts, and then just arbitrarily like, oh, but psychics are charlatans and Bigfoot people are crazy or whatever. And you said that to me, and it was like, you know what, I need to be more neutral. If I'm going to believe people, I should believe people. And that's usually how I approach this type of stuff. It's like, if there is an experience that stretches out through history and thousands to hundreds of thousands of people, and there's similarity in these stories, of course there are going to be people that are taking advantage of that, trying to make a name, trying to make a buck. But when you look at the volume and the timeline that these experiences happen, that's where the real mystery is. It's like, what is going on here? Why is that happening?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and so that's it's true. And the reason I don't remember saying that to you, but I'm sure I did, because that's my belief now, even though I don't practice it. Because as somebody that does channel, you're right about the whole being like the special thing. Like, so I wouldn't even admit it until probably 5 years ago. Like, it would happen. I'd read cards for people. But I didn't really think, I never thought what I was saying is accurate, right? Ever. And then I would find out that it was accurate. Like, or my clients would call me back and be like, oh my God, everything you said happened. And I'm like, what? And and I'm just like, okay, sure. But the idea that, it's like some special gift is uncomfortable for me, because it's not special to me. It's annoying and scary at times, or upsetting. Like, we had an incident the other day, just on Sunday, right? Where we had a call, we had somebody ask a question in the chat that was, it was not a great answer to give, that I had to give, but it's what I got. Mm-hmm. And that question, I don't know if you could tell, but I was upset with it, because I got to see what happened, and it was not fun for me. That's not fun for me, and it's really not, because it takes a lot. If you're legitimately channeling information, a lot of the time it's not your burden, but you temporarily, at least for me, I feel, or I am able to see, like, the not only what happened, but like the emotions that are going on in it, right? And the feeling of it. And so that sucks, right? Like, I don't really like to do that. But it's part of, like, I feel like if I have this ability to do it, then I owe it to the ability to do it for people, I guess. You know what I mean? So I answered the question, and it was a very terrible outcome, but, and then I find out later, we talked, and it was what I was saying was all accurate. And then I went and looked up the case and was reading it, and I was like, oh my God, like, And it's just like, how do I know? Where is it coming from? Like, where, I don't know. So like, as somebody that does this, I have no clue, to being 100% honest. I don't know where it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I feel like it does come from a dead person, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a theory that I found while I was doing research that makes me wonder now, like, okay, maybe not, because there's a theory out here now in modern times, with all the research going on, that what's happening is actually telepathy between the person doing the reading and the person asking the question. So instead of the channeler or the medium getting the information from the spirits, they're actually reading the minds of the person sitting there. And maybe, perhaps, how could I know? I don't know. But because because the only way that you know if you're even psychic, right, is to say something to somebody and then them to validate it for you, right? So this is where it gets really murky for me, because it's like, I don't like saying that about myself, because my evidence of accuracy is based on someone else's word.
Mm-hmm.
There's no objective way for me to verify that info. Well, even with you, even when we do the things that we do with the spirits, right? Like, you have the information in your head already. I don't.
Yeah.
So it's very possible at this point that I could be reading your thoughts, or somehow you're transmitting that information to me somehow.
That's a question I ask myself very frequently. So one of the things that we do for the listeners, one of the things that we do when we conjure jinn, I do image magic. And image magic is basically you draw an image, or a lot of times it makes it onto a talisman, but I make sure before every conjuration I draw the image as listed in the grimoires. And a lot of times it looks like a hieroglyph. Like I try to make it look like a hieroglyph or a cave drawing or something.
Okay.
But these descriptions of these spirits in the grimoires, I try to draw it in my grimoire, and then I close it, and then I started noticing immediately, I think our second it was our very first conjuration when we first started working with the jinn together, and you described the jinn approached with the same object that the jinn is holding in the image that I drew on the image. And that was very interesting to me. And then so every jinn we've conjured, there's like an image. Like before conjuration, as I'm preparing, for example, I drew an image of a jinn with black skin wearing a turban and holding a spear.
Really?
And then once we were together and we went in the conjuration, the jinn you started describing that approached us was black skin wearing a turban holding a spear. There was another night where this is the only jinn that looked like a centaur, and I drew a centaur, and then once you were coming into contact, the jinn was a hunter and he looked like a centaur. I drew the image, him with a bow and arrow, and then once you were in the conjuration, you were like, it's one, you could hear it, like it's hiding from me.
I remember this one. Yeah.
I hear multiple footsteps, but I know it's only one entity, and in my mind, I'm screaming, it's a centaur, it's a centaur. That's why, because you were very confused about it.
And I kept seeing this motion.
Yeah,
of like
yeah.
Pull back, release, and so we're not in the same room when this is happening, by the way. Like,
yeah.
So just FYI, like, you're in here doing preparing, and I'm doing makeup.
Yeah.
In another room.
So you got to look pretty for the spirits.
I do. I'm serious. Like,
when's the last time they've seen a woman? We don't know.
Ever? Yeah. One of them said like seemed like never. So yeah, like I don't see these things like. But that's crazy. I didn't know about the black skin one at all. With the
it's been nearly every single one. And so the question that I ask myself is like, are you getting that from me? Are you like able to read it out of my grimoire? But then there's the other instances where I don't know the information, you don't know the information, and it isn't until like the next week I'm reading something and I realize something that you said or described is in a different grimoire that I've never been exposed to.
See,
and then that's when I really get thrown through a loop, because I'm like, okay, that's
scary.
A lot more, because it's a little more comforting to think that maybe we're just feeding into each other.
Yeah.
And,
I know. I liked that. Damn it. I liked that
theory. It's a little
theory.
more comfortable, because then we can just be like, okay, this is all a head game and you can pump the brakes whenever you want. But when you pull something that is like, that I don't know, and then I find out like a week later that's, oh my gosh, this is listed in this grimoire. That's when I kind of have my like little psychological break. Like,
Sorry.
oh my gosh, this is way more like,
Yeah, that
it
is
never stops freaking out.
That's what I have
Yeah.
in my notes here is like,
Yeah.
it explains the things that you knew and I didn't know going
Yeah.
in, but it doesn't explain the things that both of us were blind to that then turn out to be real things. Like,
Yes, yeah.
that is crazy. But like when I'm talking about, like when I read for people, like, you know, just the clients, it's like, I'm just relying on their feedback, their reviews of me. Right. And so, and I know as a, you know, somebody that has a doctorate in psychology, I'm very aware that when people want information, that they're very much capable of doing the mental gymnastics that they need to do to make something fit, right? And that's what I typically think, right? But then there's also the times where I tell a client something and they look me dead in the eye and they say, no, that's not right. And I'm like, okay, cool, sorry. And I think I've been wrong. And then they call me like a week later and say, oh my God, that thing you told me that I said was wrong. I totally had forgotten about this other thing. And here's what it is. And then it's that thing. And I'm like, oh, so you know what I mean? So even the person can think I'm wrong because it doesn't resonate with them right away. And then they go home and think about it. But still, that's still subjective, right? Like it's still a subjective method of ascertaining your level of psychic ability.
Yeah.
Because I'm still, at the end of the day, I'm relying on, except for our experiments, I'll exclude these. But for my general reading stuff, I'm only relying on my client's feedback.
Yeah.
You know, there are occasions where I've actually seen a person in my house before I meet with somebody that I've never met with before. Those times really confuse me because I don't know how that works. Like I've had a little boy show up at my house once, you know, who was wearing like a raincoat and some galoshes. And I actually had a date over and the date didn't believe in any of this. And he saw the kid too. And he freaked out and then he left. And the next day I had we were on a podcast with my friend Stephanie. And I just, at the end, I was like, hey, I just got to say this, like, is anybody watching right now, like happen to have like a little boy, like maybe 3 to 4 years old or something, you know, that was wearing like a raincoat for some reason, like wearing a yellow raincoat. I said, because this kid showed up at my house last night and I, like, for some reason, I'm just feeling like I need to ask that question. And all of a sudden some lady pops up in the chat, okay, who I see her name and I'm like, oh, she had contacted me earlier in the week, asked me if I could do a reading for her. And she asked me if I could contact a specific dead person for her. And I told her, I can't guarantee that because I can't, right? I can't guarantee that. I could try, you know, let me know if she wants to proceed. And I didn't hear back from her. It was her son that showed up in my house. Like she showed me a pic. So not only that, I kept hearing the word Harley, right? Like Harley Davidson. And so I said that and his name was Harlan. Mm-hmm. Like that's not exact, but it's pretty darn close, right? And he had been hit by a car on his way to school in the rain. Mm-hmm. And I lost my shit. I had to stop record. We had to stop the live feed. I started breaking down because in that moment I realized, oh shit, like how would I know? Like there's no way I could know that. There's no way. Like that lady, I didn't know anything about her. She just randomly emailed me her first name. You know what I mean? I didn't like research her, nothing like that. Like I didn't hear back from her. And then she just happens to be watching the live. And I say that. And she then puts a picture in the chat of this boy. And when I saw the picture, I lost my shit. Like I started crying because I'm a mom and I can't imagine, you know what I mean? Like, and it's there on YouTube if you want to see it, like in live time, me being a nightmare mess. But it was disruptive to me because it was like, what just happened? You know what I mean? Like, how does this work? And it's confusing. And if you really experience this stuff, you're probably really confused sometimes as to why it's happening to you. Yeah. Or why you're getting the information you're getting. Most of the time, though, it's not anything helpful. Like, honestly, it's not. But I think the new stuff that we're seeing, though, is quite interesting. And we did a little bit about this in the trance episode, right? About the brainwave thing.
Yes.
Right? But we've been doing more of that because I ended up buying my own device.
I've been doing a lot of research into the brainwaves because we want to keep taking these experiments and finding out more about this.
Right. Yeah.
And it's highly relevant to what I've been doing with hypnotism as well.
Right.
So,
but I mean, what did you find? You said the other day, you told me, we were talking about something, I don't remember, and you said something about 2 brainwaves that are both elevated that shouldn't be at the same time or something like that?
yeah, so the theta waves, which are low frequency. So the delta waves are the lowest frequency, and those are associated with unconscious sleep and like your body healing.
Okay.
So right above that is theta waves, and that's associated with REM sleep, really deep meditation, and really deep hypnosis. And so the theta waves are what I'm aiming to place people into. That is where, if you guys have been listening to the podcast long enough, you know that early on when we started playing around with hypnosis and triggering your mediumship, I believed that your mediumship was in the hypnagogic state. And so I was using hypnosis to carve out the hypnagogic state. Well, the hypnagogic state is in the theta waves. However, what we found in the EEG experiments is that you had an elevation. Not only were these deep delta and theta waves spiked, but also gamma waves, which is the very highest part of the frequency spectrum. It's a really crazy awareness that's going on that's associated with feelings of oneness, with ecstasy. And in neural imaging research, they found that this is the state that Tibetan Buddhist monks are going into.
Right.
They have an elevation of theta waves and gamma waves at the same time.
Right. So my theory that trauma gives you the ability to dissociate to the same level as what a monk practices their whole life to do is accurate then.
So there's this, so there's a synchronization that's going on. And that's something that was pointed out. This man that's teaching in the program I'm in right now for hypnosis, he said something about brainwave synchronization, and it clicked for me that that's what was happening on your EEGs, because one of the really weird things that was happening in your EEGs was all your brainwaves were bundling and they were moving together, which is normally that's not happening. They're in different
amplitudes,
realms,
right? They're
different amplitudes, and depending on what the person, yours were bundling and they were going together. And they found in this research with the Buddhist monks that they were bundling their frequencies and synchronizing them as well.
That's interesting. Like because I thought that I had zero proof theory, right? I had zero evidence to support that. It was just my thought about it. And it turns out that is accurate. So I swear to God, I think that's how some people get their information that they then go on to create things with.
Well, I mean, do you want to get into that
yes,
right now? Because
let's talk about it. Well, let's talk about that. But I want to, the stuff that their neural imaging is showing, right, is fascinating. Like there's one, I don't think I shared this with you yet, but they did a study. So the Institute of Noetic Sciences did a study, and they also did like a meta-analysis of all the research literature out there already. And so a meta-analysis is a literature review, which is pretty valid in science, okay? Means that they take all of the research and then they find the points that are static across all, right? So what they've found is that when someone's channeling information, their language centers are seated or suppressed. So the ability to form words and to speak is shut off almost. Like it's almost completely dormant.
Where does that happen in the front?
So I have it. I gotta find it. I have it here somewhere. But it's fascinating to me because it was like, wait, what? So they're talking, right? They're giving okay. So it's right here. So it finds that they have a reduced. Okay, so the fMRI and the SPECT studies found reduced activity in language/executive regions during the more complex speeches. Like, so their ability to talk is shut off. Like, okay, and then also there is a they find that it's a coupling of dissociation and performance. So it's like the ability to move the muscles is still there, right, to speak, but the ability to think the words into speech is not.
Yeah.
Meaning something's using the voice box.
Well,
right?
so something that I understand about how the brain processes information, and this is a personal understanding, I don't know if this is scientifically accurate, but that the subconscious, it communicates with what the subconscious likes. The most basic primitive way you can communicate with the subconscious is through feelings and emotions. On top of that, those get translated to symbols.
Yes.
And those symbols are images, and those symbols and images get translated to ideas, and at the very end of the chain that gets translated to language.
Yes.
So if the channeling is happening on a subconscious level, the language center can be shut off because when you're receiving information, a lot of time you are getting feelings and you're getting pictures,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
So that is something that if you can communicate in emotions, feelings, and pictures, the subconscious is eating that up.
Yeah.
It loves that.
That's why it's hard for me to find words sometimes for what I'm seeing or feeling, because it's a whole embodied feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, how do you put that into words? But the area of the brain that we're talking about here is the prefrontal. It says neuroimaging shows decreased prefrontal control and altered caudate parietal function. So it's the language areas of the brain. So and how you think about words before you say them, right? It's off. Mm-hmm. So, or at least it's decreased or seeded. Okay.
Yeah.
And, so there's, and then the other things that they notice too is that there's a high level of absorption, which you and I have we both have. Absorption is when you get really focused on something. Mm-hmm. Like when you go into a thing, you're doing it 100%, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people can kind of multitask or whatever. I mean, and I guess I can multitask perhaps, but I think if I'm really doing something, I'm doing it, Yeah. And that's a trait also that they found. And then also interesting that you just said that, because they found that there's a high level of transliminality within the person, meaning that they have an ease of crosstalk between imagery, memory, affect, and correlates with dream recall, creativity, and unusual experiences. So like they're able to have the crosstalk between the emotions and the words, mm-hmm. right? To be able to parse them out, like it's like a charades game. Like they're good at that, right? Yeah. And then also they are also responsive to hypnotic suggestion, mm-hmm. and so this partially mediates suggestibility. But most of the people tested on these found that they were not in a really high, like they weren't at the highest. They were like in the middle somewhere. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like that's all that just all suggestibility, right? Yeah. They're in the normal range, but within the normal range of high suggestibility. That makes sense. Not like excessive.
Yeah. So
right?
Within hypnotic suggestibility, if you are smack in the center of suggestibility styles, you are the easiest to hypnotize.
Oh yeah. Interesting. That's interesting. This is all scientific research. Like this is like legitimate research here. And I think it's fascinating, but let's talk about what you were saying. So let's go into what we were just
what prompted I forgot what prompted that.
I can't remember now.
Said something about people getting inspiration or
something. So when we say divinely inspired, right? A lot of this is fascinating to me. So like I used to teach biology to high school and college levels, and because I was a former scientist, right? And one of the things that I found really interesting, and when I was making my curriculum, was when I looked up cell theory, and just cells in general. Robert Hooke from 1643, before the microscope was invented. Before that, mm-hmm. Robert Hooke visited a monastery, and he said after that visit, I think cells like in the body, he made the term cells because the bedrooms that the monks lived in were called cells. Mm-hmm. And the place he went to, this monastery, how he was looking at it from a certain vantage point, he had like this aha moment where he was like, that's what we're made of. Like, and then he just proceeded to draw out a diagram of what a, somatic cell, like just a regular cell looks like with the organelles in it and stuff, right? Before microscopes were a thing. When the microscope came out in his lifetime, It was verified that that's exactly right. Like he had gotten this information while he's at a holy place, right?
Yeah.
You know, and it was accurate. And then that's not the only example within science. There was also like cellular respiration, the Krebs cycle. The German scientist Hans Krebs, he also had this idea of what was happening as the body, you know, takes food and breaks it down into usable nutrients, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was accurate, you know, but he got it out of sleep. He had it come to him in a dream.
Have you ever heard the story of atoms? How far back atoms go?
I mean, I know that the Greeks were talking about it.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure it was a pre-Socratic philosopher first came up.
It's Democritus, wasn't it?
Yeah, first came up with the idea for atoms.
Yeah, it was a Chuck.
Yeah, with the rest of Greek philosophy. I mean, we're talking Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. All thought it was ridiculous.
Oh yeah,
and they went with the substance model. Everything was made of substance.
Yeah, Democritus had it's chalk, and he said, I can break this chalk into this. I can break it as many times as I want, and it's still going to be chalk.
Yeah.
And there's other things in the world that aren't still going to be what they are when you break them apart down to their basics, right? Mm-hmm. And so that he had the idea of an atom, which was this one thing that makes up all of its thing. Like, you know, so like molecules are atoms make up molecules, and then molecules combine with other molecules, different types to make things. But like an atom is the base structure of a thing, right? Yeah. Elements, right? Yeah. So yeah, that's way old. Yeah, it's way old.
Yeah, it's crazy
but
because
how they know?
Yeah, so this is something, and I pointed out, I think, true creativity, creative genius. I mean, I'm talking about like a Da Vinci and Isaac Newton, that it comes from that. And there's actually, I keep bringing it up when we're talking about UFO channeling. It happens here in the States still. And
what does?
This inspiration. And so within UFO cults and within UFO religion, which is a kind of new American religion.
I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, so you gotta elucidate. I do not know what you mean.
There are scientists and inventors that work within the industrial military complex, within medical science, you know, people that make medical machines that save lives.
Yeah.
And these are brilliant inventors, and they believe that they are getting into contact with some extraterrestrial intelligence, and they call it the download, and it gives them inspiration. And so what you see is these people that are in a modern American scientific progress society working in these hard sciences that are inventing like these crazy military and medical machines and inventions that they've kind of scientificized this really ancient thing that they used to attribute, like God inspired me, or, you know, like a great artist. Like artists like to lean into the spiritual model, you know, where they say, like when you talk to somebody who's a great artist, you know, like somebody who's actually doing something innovative and creative, and is just seems like they're from another planet, you know, they don't take credit for it themselves. They say that it's like it comes to me.
Yeah, you know? Like Nikola Tesla said the same.
Yeah.
So he had like no like his stuff, he would draw it out once and that would be it, and it would work. You know, like, and he said he would get it from he didn't know where.
Yeah.
But that's the same thing.
So there's this like really interesting book. It's called American Cosmic.
Yeah.
And it's specifically about this. It's about this religious studies professor from the University of North Carolina, and she got into, her name's, is it Anne?
Oh man, I can't remember now. Yeah, but she was a part of our school too.
Yeah.
At National,
But she was first in religious studies. What she was famous for was being an expert on the development of purgatory and the development and the Catholic rite of exorcism, right? So she's working with studying the Catholic Church, and she's religious studies. And so religious studies isn't theology. Religious studies is very secular, kind of like, let's anthropologically analyze what's going on here. So while she was investigating the development of the idea of purgatory, she took it back to, I think it was Ireland. And there were these nuns that were in this convent, and they kept having these experiences where these white orbs would fly into the convent or whatever.
Okay.
And she thought, and so the nuns, the way that they rationalized this was that these were, souls that were stuck. They weren't in heaven, they weren't in hell. So this is where the idea of purgatory comes from. And so while she was talking about this at a conference, one of her friends pointed out, like, hey, I don't know how familiar you are with UFOlogy, but they talk about these white orbs all the time. And he was like, maybe you want to go and investigate that.
Yeah, they make the crop circles, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it led her into exploring UFO religion in America, where she started uncovering this really crazy phenomenon where she started meeting these scientists and these inventors and these tech CEOs that they all believed in this download where they were channeling this information for their great invention. And there was specifically one person that she describes in the book. His name is Tyler, but it's a pseudonym. And this guy, he worked in a military lab. In the room next to him, they had some kind of artifact that he believed was from a UFO. And he believed him working in proximity of this artifact, the artifact would give him inspiration for his inventions. So if you really think about this, if you break it down to its bare essentials, I mean, like, what is this artifact other than a talisman or a statue of a god,
or an essence of whatever it is,
yes,
right?
Exactly. So there's this similar thing that's happening in occultism, and then also within this more weird kind of new agey UFO cultism and UFO religion.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder if the aliens that they're channeling is just the collective unconscious and they're just attributing it to aliens.
So there's another, I think the most famous UFO channeling is called raw consciousness.
Oh.
It's called Law of One, Raw Consciousness.
Okay.
And it's a book, I think it's from the late 80s
or
whatever. But if you read the book, I mean, it sets up the typical UFO stuff where we're a part of a galactic federation of light and there's the Pleiadians and that kind of thing. And that might be where this stems from. However, they're channeling sessions. And when I read the channeling sessions, the way that the channeler in this book is speaking is very, very similar to the way that you're speaking. It's kind of disorganized and broken. And the channeler is talking in these bursts of like symbols and sights. And it's
right.
I feel like I'm like absolutely, when we are in a session together, it reads the same way that you're speaking when you're in that state. And that I've always thought Law of One was goofy, new age nonsense. And then I started realizing, I was like, okay, like this person is doing something. But in Law of One, raw consciousness, they believe that it's a collective cosmic consciousness.
I think so too.
A extraterrestrial consciousness that they're
sure, because we're terrestrial, so it'd be outside of that. But like, so the way that in all of these studies, like they always ask the people how they receive their information, like to them, what does it look like, right? And I wanted to know this because I wanted to know, am I crazy? Is it just me? So auditory, like some of the ways that people experience it is auditory, which happens in fully formed phrases, inner pressure to speak, like. Sometimes I'll say something and I'll be like, I don't know why I just said that.
Yeah.
Okay. Or like I'll say a weird phrase, like the other day I said to a client, mind your P's and Q's. And I don't talk like that. And I was like, why did I say that? Like that's a pressured speech issue. And words that arrive just ahead of articulation. So like you say it before you understand what you're saying, right? Yeah. That's one way. And I get that all the time. The other one is this visual in flashes. Tableau, it's table AUX, tableau, and or moving film, quote unquote, map like overlays or symbolic images that require interpretation. This is frequent for me. I see like snapshots, right? Just enough information to understand what's going on in the situation, but no words, right? But more than often than not, there's words accompanying it. Then there's also the kinesthetic or affect, where the affect of the person changes, their mannerisms change, and their body movements become jerky or strange. And I feel like that might happen to me sometimes too.
Yeah, when your voice and your body changes, it reminds me of like the oh man,
My voice changes?
yeah, it gets very robotic. It reminds me of I forget her name, the computer robot woman in the Halo
I
games.
don't know. I don't play games.
I think Microsoft named their little
Okay.
chat
It's like a
thing.
robot voice?
I want to say it's like,
Interesting.
I want to say it's Sora, but it's not Sora.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like Siri or whatever, but your voice and your affect will change, and it gets like a very robotic kind of futuristic, what you'd think a sci-fi movie spaceship
no.
computer would sound like,
God,
or whatever. Yeah, and
We
then
can't do that, Dave.
yeah, exactly. It's stuff like that.
Yeah. No, wait.
Yeah.
So that's creepy. I don't like that. Do I slow down when I talk?
It's very choppy, it's very jilted, and it's funny because it feels like a sci-fi movie because you're like,
I don't like that.
I do not comprehend that human emotion or something.
Like
And
how I don't
robotic-
talk.
yeah.
I don't talk that. Like
Yeah,
how I, not like
and
how I
it's
talk.
It's funny because when you first started doing it, I didn't know if it was like maybe you're on the spectrum or something. And it was just coming out.
I am. That's true. I'm on some spectrum. Yeah.
It was like, yeah, but it's crazy because the more we've worked together, it's funny because the things we get into contact with, and especially when we get into contact with your higher self, that's when it comes out the most. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, your guardian angel. That's when that affect comes out the most.
The weird one?
Yeah.
Oh, ew. That's strange.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really weird. But like, I'm always very curious to know how other people experience it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you experience it, do me a solid and like explain how you experience it. I want to see, because it's almost impossible to do. I get that. Like it's really hard. Like I try to explain to you sometimes like how I see things, and I can't. Like I don't have language for it. There's no real frame of reference for it either. Like, it's like kind of like charades. Maybe, like maybe it's like, wait, what are you showing me? Okay, how do I? And then of course it's always going to be working through the person's own schema of things, right?
Yes.
So that's the other issue. And you had a situation with that recently.
Yeah, I did.
That was
we talked about
hilarious.
it in another episode.
Yeah.
But one of the things that you always have to be aware of when working with mediums and when working with psychics, even because you do run into mediums and psychics that are like, this is what I do. This is like who I am. This is my main thing. But they aren't necessarily so theologically trained, I guess. And so
or
they
flexible in their beliefs.
Yeah, exactly. So they're not as open to alternative symbol sets. They think that their symbol set is the correct one.
Right.
And that is a problem, because with those people, if you don't know how to recognize it, they can completely reframe one of your experiences negatively using their symbol set. And that's something that I've learned about psychics and mediums. So for you, for example, a lot of times when we're talking about with the spirits about theology, your visceral abreaction starts to come through the symbol set to like traditional institution religion.
Because
that starts to come through. Yeah, it starts to come through the symbol set, and I have to like remind myself that like this is coming through
my filters,
her filter, her frame of reference.
Right.
I have to like extract what the spirit is saying in essence out of this visceral abreaction that you're having because we're talking about, let's say, Christ or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, and I see that, and but like the difference I think with what you experienced with that one person and me is like, when it's over with, I do sit and I think about what happened and like, okay, was that, can it possibly be can I be taking this wrong? You know what I mean? Because of my set beliefs, right? But mine are pretty flexible because at this point in life, I realize that like I don't know shit.
We had an experience where one of the spirits was talking to us about archons, and you were unfamiliar with what an archon is in Gnosticism, and so the symbol you were rendering it as was alien spaceships. You know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that
Yeah.
one. Yeah, where
Yeah.
they're like hanging out above. Yeah.
Yeah, they were hanging out above and they were harvesting energy. Like you were going through like a David Icke kind of Anunnaki symbol set to describe what was going on.
Yeah, I don't even know about that either.
Exactly.
Like I just hear about it and I feel like it's some silliness, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah,
you
so
know?
you're talking about these spaceships that came and trapped everybody and they were harvesting.
And I didn't believe,
energy.
and I was like, this
And
doesn't
then-
seem real.
Yeah, so you're talking about this, and in my
Yeah.
mind, I'm like, she's talking through her symbol set, and so I just confirmed with the spirit really quick, and it was like, are you talking about archons? And then immediately it was like a confirmation. And
Yeah,
so it was
okay,
like,
so
so my symbol set is archon. Your symbol set is this
aliens.
alien spaceship.
I mean,
or
so
whatever.
like that,
Yeah.
but the point of us telling you this is so that you're aware if you do encounter this, like, you know, I think it's just because you got a reading from somebody doesn't mean that your own discernment shouldn't come into play. Like if you feel like part of the message you got might be skewed based on that, like that's okay because it probably is.
Yeah,
like we're human, you know, after all, like, I mean, and the things that I personally hold to be true are, you know, again, I'm flexible because I've seen so much in my life that I've had to switch up my belief system, right? Because of it. Like with the thing, if you believe in one thing, you have to believe in all of it.
Yeah.
That was new because that was with the Guatemala magic situation. I was like, I didn't believe in that.
Yeah.
I didn't believe that you could be hurt by black magic unless you believed in it.
Yeah.
Like that it could hurt you. And I didn't, and it did.
Yeah.
So like, okay, that's out the window, right? So I started to understand that, like, if that's real, then everything else is. Then vampires are real shit. Like, I don't know what, I don't know, but I'm saying like,
Atoria vampires.
You know, Atoria, so cute. You know, yeah, that's his kid was saying she couldn't say Victorian, so she calls it Atorian vampires for Halloween, which is so cute. So yeah, like you got to remember that everybody's coming with their own belief system, and how they're going to interpret the messages for you is going to be through that filter, right? And you know, sometimes it can be pretty negative based on what their belief system is.
Yes.
So like with you, it was demonic. Everything was demonic you were talking about.
Anything that wasn't Chinese was demons.
Right. Yeah.
So,
yeah. See,
yeah.
I mean, so, you know, a more well-rounded person is probably better. Like somebody that has a little understanding of all of it would be great, you know,
Yeah,
but that's unrealistic to think you're going to find, honestly, probably.
It is. You should really, I think it's important if you're going to enter into a role where you're using your abilities to help people and to offer spiritual guidance, is that you have to look for language and symbols that are more universal or represent something universal, and you have to interpret your own beliefs through them too. So one of the, you know, hardest things for me to encounter where I have to interpret my symbol sets or whatever for somebody else is definitely dealing with kind of like the infernal and the satanic practitioners. And I have to take a step back and really look at the essence of what they're doing instead of the window dressing. And I have to analyze from there, you know, are they like, what is happening? Don't react to their symbols. React to the context of the symbols, right?
It's so interesting that you just bring that up because I was wondering how I was going to segue into this next part, and now I can easily. So what you just said about how you have to kind of look at you have to look at it from a different perspective sometimes, right? You know, going in is because of their own set beliefs, right? So what happened with you when you had that reading or that situation with that person? They immediately just put upon you all of their beliefs about your experience, and they didn't take any consideration into what you took away from it at all, right? In fact, it didn't make any sense. I was listening to this whole situation, and I couldn't hear a word that person was saying, but I knew exactly what they were saying because of how you were responding, right? So this is similar to psychology, how psychology in the past has ticked boxes off, right? So if you come in and you say, I hear voices, schizophrenia or schizotypal, whatever, okay? Now there's a shift to the more transpersonal, meaning whole person, including culture and spiritual beliefs, right? Now, so because if you're an American psychologist and you have someone from another country come to you, or from another religious practice, culture, etc., where in their culture ghosts and spirit voices are normal in their frame of reference, in the past those people would have been deemed as magical thinkers and crazy, right? Okay, but now we're starting to train people to understand that it's all relative to where they stem from, right? Like where they came from, like what their upbringing was, what their belief system was. That's not in traditional Western psychology at all. Like that is absolutely disregarded, right? Like it's just, if you're hearing voices, you're crazy. Now transpersonal and depth psychology or Jungian psychology is different. Now it's like, no, we're going to take that into consideration. We're not going to just write off the person right away as being crazy, because this could be a normal thing that they were raised with. Like this could be a part of their, just how they are as a person because of how they were brought up in the culture, right? And it's so much so that just recently in the last edit of the DSM, the DSM-5 TR has added a whole new section, which I find fascinating, because it not only does it kind of account for a lot of experiences that people have, but it also leaves open the idea that it could possibly be something spiritual actually happening. Like, because they don't take it, there's actual like criteria that happen that are listed in here for how you can't count this as a psychosis, and it has to do with religious experience. Okay, so in the DSM-5 now we have a new addition, which is spiritual based problems. Okay, that did not exist in the past iterations of the DSM, but one of them is, well, a couple of them, they're possession based. It's possession based, right? So there's the one where there's the possession phenomenon, okay, which requires a loss of consciousness and a complete amnesia of the event happening, okay? And it is not invited. It is not something that the participant willingly participated in. And it has to last for days or weeks, the possession period. And the criteria for it is that the people around them are noticing different behaviors, different speech patterns, etc. And then the person themselves does not recall any of it and is distressed by it. Okay. So this is along the lines of dissociative identity disorder, where they have different alternative personalities that come through. The funny thing is with this though, and I find this beyond fascinating, is that there have been studies on these people that have dissociative identity disorder, that one of their alters is diabetic, right? And they test the blood and they are diabetic. But then when that personality is no longer in the body presenting itself, that person's no longer diabetic, medically speaking, scientifically speaking, verifiably speaking. There's one case of a person, I don't know if it was male or female. I'm going to assume it was female. I'm pretty sure it's female, but I don't know for sure. But this person had eyesight problem. And couldn't see, probably like me without my glasses. Then an alter took over that had 20/20 vision, and she could see everything without her glasses. How the hell is that happening? You know what I mean?
Psychosomatic.
I mean, can I please psychosomatically fix my eyes? That'd be great.
We're pushing the boundaries on that.
We are. We are. But this is, so there's that type. And then there's the other type, which is like another form of auditory hallucinations that occur. And it's only considered a problem if the auditory hallucinations tell you to do bad things to yourself. So if they're telling you negative things, then that is considered something to be worried about. But if it's not telling you negative things, and it specifically states in the criteria that if the person is not distressed by the information coming through, it is not considered a psychosis or a disorder. So they have left the door open. So what they've done here is they've identified the things that are problematic within the idea of spiritual channeling or hearing voices, right? And left it open to say that it's not necessarily bad as long as it's not causing you distress.
Does that count if I can hear death metal singers singing about serial killing in my head? Is that?
I hear that stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Like, you know, what do you mean?
Does that count as psychosis?
No.
No, it just means I
No,
like
no,
death
because
metal.
yeah. You know, I mean, and then also the fact that you can hear songs in your head
Yeah.
is only 30% of the population can do that, which I think is freaking weird,
I
because I
think
hear songs all day long in my
I
head.
think all musicians can do that.
I'm not a musician
There
necessarily.
are musicians that are definitely visual learners, but we can.
How can you not hear?
You can hear.
What do
the
you mean you
song
don't
in
hear
your
stuff
head.
in your head? I don't understand that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so even within like this practice of psychology, which is known for making people crazy, you know, and also the thing, and I think one of the reasons for this is because as soon as you get a label in your chart, okay, if you go into see the doctor and you say you hear voices and they mark that down in your chart, the next time you go to the doctor, it doesn't matter if it's psychology based visit or medical based, that is a check against you. Like, no one's going to take you serious, and that's unfortunate, but that's how it works. That's why a lot of people don't tell their doctors this stuff, and I would agree to not, unless it's really causing you problems. But you will end up getting some kind of negative
or
mark.
find a doctor that
Right.
can specifically deal with your spiritual beliefs.
Right,
you know?
exactly, yeah.
So
It's
I
super
think
important.
when I went through my mental health journey or whatever, I was very upfront with my therapist about, you know, what I practiced and what I believed in. And that therapist took into account that like they were very understanding. I was lucky. I know not all therapists are going to be like that, but I was lucky that I had a therapist that was very understanding and did not think I was crazy for, you know, talking to old gods and spirits at night, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
I had a therapist like that one time, and I didn't know it until she sent me a solstice card for winter. I was like, oh, cool. So then I felt comfortable telling her about it, and she did not put that in my chart that I was crazy. And then my last therapist that I had while I was in school, actually, she didn't believe in it. But then I told her something that her uncle had said to me about her nickname. I called her a nickname, and she shut the meeting down and got off camera with me. And then the next time I saw her, she goes, I'm so sorry I had to do that. But I just don't understand how you knew that. Like, I got to say, and she's told me, Dr. Lisa thinks, she said, I got to say, I was not sure about you, like at first, but I was like, well, your school background and stuff is so high that you can't be psychotic, right? Because if you're psychotic, you're not functioning in reality, right?
Yeah.
But you've done so many things, you've accomplished so much. She's like, so I was really confused by like you talking about this stuff and then knowing what you're doing academically, right? Because she's part of the school. And she's like, but then you told me what my uncle, there's no way you could have known my Nino said that. And I was like, well, sorry. And she goes, it scared me. That's why I had to get off the camera. I'm going to blow this out. Sorry, we got wax dripping over here on the rug.
Carpet.
It's okay.
I'm
getting a new one anyway. It's filthy.
Nice Moroccan.
But we'll get a better one. But like she, you know, one of our last sessions together, she's like, I just want to say I had so much fun working with you, and you changed my mind. You changed my mind about this ability. And I was like, well, it wasn't my goal. She goes, I know that wasn't your goal, and that's why it helped change my mind. But it scared her. Like, and that's the other thing too, is that sometimes this stuff scares people when they witness it, right? Because it's like, who the hell are you? How did you know that? You know, I called her by a name that I don't know why I said it.
Well, we willingly engage in it, and it scares us. You know, it still gets us sometimes. You know, like how did that happen? How did
any of it happen?
Find that? Yeah, exactly.
Like you got to write stuff down. I swear it's helpful to write it down so that later you can go back and find out you're not crazy.
Yeah, the grimoire is essential.
Yeah,
the grimoire is so essential.
Yep. Yeah.
But it makes me happy that people are researching it and taking it seriously. I mean, the point of science shouldn't be looking for proof of it, of like trying to, like, you shouldn't be approaching this kind of stuff and measuring it and researching it from a place of, I'm going to prove that ghosts are real, or I'm going to prove telekinesis is real. You should really just be trying to figure out when you're researching it, like accepting that these people are experiencing something and research, like just measuring it, seeing,
right,
you know, like what what are the similarities in this? How
Yes.
can we identify this as a phenomenon?
Well,
Instead of like, oh, I'm trying to prove magic, because you're never going to be able to do that.
You're not, not now. But like, so one of the things that, again, across the board that they have been able to consistently show is that trance states, okay, when we're talking about trance states associated with channeling, this is a study specifically about that, oftentimes show decreased executive control or paradoxical reduced language network activity during complex output, distinguishing them from effortful fabrication. Although these markers are not proof of disincarnate sources. Okay. So what it's saying in layman's terms here is that the executive control to be able to form a thought and make it make sense, and then the language ability to say it out loud is off. Okay. And so the executive control, like it takes an executive control to lie about something. You have to think about what you're lying about. Like, what are you trying to cover up? What's the goal, right? That's a whole, like, if you think about making up a lie right now. There's so many steps involved to it, right? That's why liars always get caught, because, the truth doesn't need any of that prep, right? But lie does. So there's so many little mini steps along the way. And all of those steps require executive control, right? So those centers of the brain are off when people are in a trance channeling state. So it's like they can't really make up stuff, right? But even still, science will still say not a proof of it coming from somewhere else, right?
No, that's fine. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
I think it's more important to understand what's happening to the person than, looking for proof of a model or a...
Okay, I got a question for you. I just saw this. I know I took these notes for 2 weeks now, but I forgot about this one. Tell me if this matches up with what you think happens with me, okay, with how I speak. A clairaudience, an internal, clearly other voice with a stable tone, using phrases the medium wouldn't choose normally. Okay, sometimes with locational qualia over the right shoulder or wherever they are coming from, okay, often arrives half a beat before speech in platform work. And the person is speaking in beats instead of normal language flow.
Beats? It's very robotic. I wouldn't say it's rhythmic.
It's like in spurts of...
Yeah, in spurts.
It's it often comes in like little chunks and then like nothing, and then chunks and then nothing.
Yeah.
Like beats like that. Like, and then with clairvoyance though, so that's when you're getting it clairaudiently. This is what this research is saying. So when somebody's channeling and they're hearing words, that's how they speak, according to the study. When it's clairvoyant, it's a rapid fire montage of symbols and literal images, right? Where their mediums report that interpretation, not just reception, is the failure point. So how they interpret it can make them fail at their reading, right? And historical SPR protocols tried to separate raw description from inference for scoring. So what we were talking about how the filter of the person's own schema can mess up the message coming through. Yeah. Right. So, and then for your ESP telepathy, they think that if you're getting it in that state, like telepathically from the sitter, right? If you're channeling and it's not coming from a spirit, it's coming from the person in the chair you're reading, then that would be, it's imagery that bleeds into hypnagogia or dreaming. And so that would be like the person's, like that's what they're saying is happening there. It's like
dream walking.
Yeah. That they're sleeping. And then there's the possession trance and I guess in the possession trance, traditionally speaking, there's a sudden postural voice shift, reduced autobiographical recall, and signature, quote unquote, motor patterns of specific entities. So whenever if there's like repeated contact with certain spirits, each time that contact should be similar to the previous time with the way the thing talks or responds or whatever it is, right?
Yeah. So when I talk to your angel through you, it's like I can tell it's you. Like I can tell it's your angel or whatever. Because it has a very specific way that it speaks. It
really
reminds me of like I've already said it.
Like 2001 Space
Yeah,
Odyssey.
exactly. It's weird. And it's also led me to this belief that the higher self, the guardian angel, or the personal diamond, because when I talk to mine, it's not as robotic, but it's probably just as aloof. And
Aloof, yeah.
it can seem very callous. And that is, it's led me to this idea that they have a hard time relating to us.
Yeah.
Because they've never been
Here.
incarnated in the meat suit.
Yeah.
And I had my angel, my daemon, actually apologized to me once, because it said that it had, it understands that I'm don't understand things the way it sees it. And it's really funny too, because I kind of like saw myself in that moment.
Yeah.
Because I'm definitely, I apologize. I try to be understanding, so it's like if I come incorrect, I'm the type of person that goes back later and says, hey, I'm sorry. Like, I understand that, I'm not understanding you.
Right.
Like that kind of stuff. So it's like, even though it's like callous and aloof and there's this disconnect because it's never been
there's no
incarnated.
emotions.
Yeah, exactly.
It's running off logic only. Like,
yes, yeah, that's what it feels like. That it's running purely off of like, this is the plan, this is it. And
that kind of leads credibility to the idea that the reason we're here is to kind of experience all the emotions, because they don't exist on the other side. Like, they don't. When I died, I did not have any emotions about anything. Like, it was just, this is what it is. Yeah. But it was real nice. Like, I don't know. Like, the one emotion that was there was just this overwhelming sense of like, everything's great. Everything's fine. There's nothing wrong. I don't know if you want to call that love or something. I'm not sure. But like, it wasn't, because I was interviewed on a podcast about the near-death thing. And the guy asked me a question that I had never pondered before, which was, did you have any anxiety or stress while you were on the other side? And I was like, huh? What? No. Oh my God. And I think I had never experienced a day in my life without anxiety or stress. Mm-hmm. And when he asked me that question, it just like hit me like a ton of bricks that, oh my God, I didn't. And that's why I was so detached about my children. Like I was like, oh, they'll be fine. Like, like I was like, oh, I'll never see my kids again. Oh, they'll be fine. Like, what? Like, that's not how I am in real life, absolutely not. Like, oh my God, I miss my kids so much. But in that moment, it was like, that wasn't an issue. Everything's going to work out fine is the way it's supposed to. Like, it was just fact. You know what I mean? And I beat myself up about that. It really bothered me because there's no emotion on the other side like that. There's no jealousy. Like, you can't lie. You know what I mean? All these things like that we experience as humans. So the idea that this is like a school to learn and master our emotions kind of makes sense in this case, because the things that we talk to don't possess those things. They don't have any of that. They don't have compassion. They don't have empathy. They don't understand what that means, and they think that we're silly for engaging in it. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. Like, and it's like it's looked down on almost. Yeah. Right? And then so I have more information that about this, the things that they're finding in the studies that they're doing right now, current time. Okay. So they're doing the ESP telepathy, hypnagogia, but then the neuroimaging of mediumistic writing, automatic writing, when they are looking at, the neuroimaging while a medium is engaged in automatic writing, they are finding that that they produce more complex text during trance with less activity in the language and executive control areas. So their writing was more intricate and more complex while they're in a trance, despite the fact that their brains are shutting down their ability to do that task, right? Mm-hmm. Which is really cool. And their findings, this is a study in Brazil, their findings suggest efficiency or altered control rather than fabrication, right? So something's like they've been taken over. And then there's another one where it says decreased prefrontal control and altered basal ganglia / parietal activity during speaking in tongues or channeling information, which is a model for speech without planning. So the reduction in the prefrontal cortex and the basal ganglia, all of that is indicative of saying words without planning for them. So this is why when you see people that speak in tongues, they're just like saying words or something, right? Have you seen those people?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what they're saying. I don't know if they make sense or not, but that's when we're talking about speaking in tongues, that's what they see going on there. They see, so that's different. Okay. It's different. So speaking in tongues is showing up that it's like they're not planning what they're saying. They're just saying it, right? And it doesn't make any sense. So, but when it's a medium doing channeling information, it's a different mechanism than speaking in tongues.
Yeah.
Just FYI. So those are not the same thing, which I find interesting. Because that's just like a hysteria almost. Like that's what it looks like. And then with everything else, like a meta-analysis of like ESP telepathy studies has not found anything across the board that they can point to of a characteristic trait of the brain functioning yet. But, you know, we're still working on it, right? This is new. It's pretty new stuff. And it's not new, but we have new equipment. I don't know. I just don't see how we're ever going to really prove it because I feel like it happens not in that kind of clinical setting.
I don't think it needs to be proven. Science can't prove everything. It's the wrong tool for the job.
It is.
What we can do with science when studying this kind of stuff is looking at how it materially affects people. Look at how it affects their bodies, look at how it affects their brains. But trying to use science to measure something that's immaterial, acausal, it's the wrong tool for the job. That's what we have, you know, theology, religion, and philosophy for.
Anthropology too, you know, like we look at, you know, like cultural anthropology gets into that stuff as well. So, and then, okay, so the dissociative trance possession disorder, that's what it's called, is a dissociative identity disorder not otherwise specified in the DSM-5, has a marked alteration of their state of consciousness and their personal identity is replaced with somebody else's identity. And this is obvious to everybody in the room, okay? So this takes more than one person. So you can't have this diagnosis if no one's witnessing it, right? And they're recurrent or if it's a single episode, it has to have lasted for at least several days, which I don't really know what several days means in this context, but that would be crazy to be in a possessed state for that long. And it's unwanted, involuntary, and it also is not accepted as part of, so this is important, this is what the verbiage I'm talking about, is not accepted as part of a collective cultural or religious practice. Mm-hmm. Okay? Because if it is part of that, then it's not considered a psychosis.
Yeah.
So they didn't used to do that. They didn't used to distinguish between a religious psychosis and a non-religious psychosis. But now, if it's religious-based, it's not psychosis. It's a religious experience or spiritual experience.
Yeah.
But I find it fascinating that psychology's now opened this up to the discussion about, hey, there's some spiritual trauma that can happen to people. And we shouldn't just automatically say that they're just crazy.
Yeah, there's more religious people on the planet than there are secular people. So the secular worldview on this matter has always been a minority opinion. It's just the minority opinion in mainstream Western culture, right?
It's the loudest.
And so it's like, if you really want to look at what the human experience is, you have to look at, you know, the rest of the population that deals with this on a daily basis. Right.
And then I found this, I remember I showed you this one. This is interesting to me. This is a religious studies dissertation that I pulled off of the internet from a seminary. And this person did a lot of research and it gave all the citations and stuff. But they also show that like blood pressure, heart rate can vary between 160 beats to 40 in the same session with a person that's channeling information, which is that's pretty crazy. But the spirits that they're talking to, remember this one about the deceptive spirits?
Yeah.
Okay. So this one I found quite interesting because we've encountered this personally, right?
Yes.
So it was saying that a lot of the spirits that people do talk to, if they are talking to spirits, that they find that they are from a, quote, gloomy cesspool of the dead in the astral realm. And they are spirits of people who have lived lives based in ignorant and selfish acts. And their hunger for sensations of physical material existence, which they've lost. And so they're Tibetan Buddhists would say these are hungry ghosts, right?
Yeah.
And they will sandwich in truth between lies, or lies within truth, right? So they will try to purposely lead people astray. And so if you do get information from spirits, then you need to be careful about what you're taking as gospel.
So yeah, I think the way that I segregate it is that, spirit contact is if it's an external thing, right? Mm-hmm. It's an external thing. I still need to lean on my intuitive faculty. So I treat it like people, right?
Yes.
If I'm dealing with a person, I treat spirits like I treat people. If I'm dealing with a person and they're saying a bunch of stuff to me and it all sounds right, and then they say something that hits me and I'm like, there's something funny about what you said. I deal with spirits the same way. Just because I'm using intuitive processes in order to get in contact with spirit does not mean I accept everything a spirit is saying as intuitively correct. Right.
Yep.
And I think that's a very, common mistake that we see made time and time again in history.
Right. And then, so for people that talk about spirit guides, right, that there are some ways, I guess, according to this research, there are some ways that you can ascertain whether or not they're legit. And one of those ways, I guess, which is seen over and over again in the research, is that when you ask for verifiable proof of an earthly life or past and they become evasive and they don't want to answer it, that's a negative sign. It's, they shouldn't, if these are people that have lived here before and then now they're in spirit form, asking them about their origins should not trigger them to be rude to you or evasive in their information. Mm-hmm. That's a sign that they're not what they say they are, right? Mm-hmm. But this Dr. Fisher believes that in the many cases, the mediums are genuine and they actually are getting information. He witnessed marked personality changes reflected by different accents, intonations, even speaking different languages. I've had that happen to me actually twice, where I've said words in another language and found out that they actually were words that made sense, which was absolutely insane to me. But that he said, he cautions, however, he believes that entities he has communicated with have, for whatever reason, misled intentionally and have couched lies inside truth to make them more convincing. They have warned people about, if you don't do what I say, this bad thing is going to happen to you, etc. And so there's people that actually will take advice of these spirits and end up in a bad situation from it. So the caution here from this doctor of theology is to not just, again, blindly accept those things like what Abammon's saying. They don't. You got to, just like a person, if it doesn't sound right, it's probably not right.
Yeah, I think one of the most, one of the best examples of that was there was a certain spirit we were talking to that started, I dropped Siddhartha Gautama's name and it said he doesn't know shit. And I was like, I just knew in that moment, I was like, this is not to be, it is basically saying never to trust anything that any person says, even the advanced mystics, that because none of them know what they're talking about. And I knew in my heart, I can understand, look, there's personal truth and there's a personal path, mm-hmm. But for something to be telling you that it is giving you the truth and that men that are wiser and more adept than you don't know anything, right. That is so leading you into pride and into hubris.
But I know what, I remember this one, and I know what was behind this, because it's not something that is easy to say in the moment because I get yelled at, right? Uh-huh. But, and then Rufus Opus just posted about this yesterday, mm-hmm. And I just read it and I was like, oh my God, I know exactly what he means. So it's about what that spirit was saying was not that person had no knowledge. It meant for you. Yeah. And that's what Rufus Opus was just saying about the grimoires, right? Mm-hmm. He was talking about this in this post about how all of the adept grimoires mm-hmm. are basically kind of bullshit because it's that person's interpretation of the methods they've been introduced to, practiced with, etc., and it works for them. but that doesn't mean it's going to work for you. It means like everybody has to have their own practice. And I think that was the message behind it, which was like, you can't get, like, you can train and you can research and you can learn, but at the end of the day, when it comes to actually implementing a spiritual practice, that it has to be a individualized, customized thing in order for it to work. Well, yeah,
everybody has their own personal path home, you know,
right?
And like I understand that sentiment,
right? That's what I felt like that message was.
Is the anytime whether it's a person or a spirit is telling me that wise men, adept men, pious men don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
I know in my heart that is not true, and that the wise thing to do is to learn from those farther along the path.
Sure. And that's what he was saying too in his post, was like, these are things to read about and research so that you can then take it and do it with your own, abilities and stuff. Because we always have to learn, right? But it's just like, if you're thinking that if you buy a book written by some other adept and that you follow that book to the T, that you're going to have the same outcome as them, it's probably not going to happen that way.
Yeah.
But again, like, everybody's experience with the spirits, if you do have it, it's going to be different from there's no way we could ever know how I'm experiencing it compared to you, but it's fun and interesting to learn about as much as we can at this time. So I'd really like to hear if you all have those experiences, and if you do, how often do you have them? And is it usable information? Because half the time I get stuff it's nothing I can use or do anything with, and I don't understand the reason for it.
It becomes usable on a long enough timeline.
Like, I mean, I guess.
Yeah. There's stuff that you said in a session a year ago that, all of a sudden is like, oh, that's what this is for, Oh. Well, remember, you handed me a bunch of symbols from one of our first conjurations together, and I had literally just got the key to unlock what those symbols meant. And I was like, thank God this is written down, because this was given to us a year ago, and now I'm finally at a place where I understand what these mean.
Yeah, that's why writing it down is important. And like, if you see, so I think a lot of people want to hear words, right? And that's all great. But there are times where I have seen images of things like symbols, letters, whatever, I don't know, characters. I'm not even sure how to say what they are. And I tell you, and you try to draw them down. And then if I look at it and it's a little different, I will draw my own version of it. And then it turns out every single time they've actually meant something. Yes. And I don't like, these are things that I have I have no idea what they are. And it's really, I think it's helpful to help you like kind of ground yourself that you're not crazy, right? But also it makes you a little crazy. It's like both. It does. It can be destabilizing. And also I think if you're a channeler, if you do this, you do have the ability to turn it off, and you should know that.
Yes.
Because that's important. If you don't turn it off, it could be overwhelming.
You're in complete control. You just it might seem stupid and obvious, but you have the ability to tell to just say like no, or to say yes,
Yep.
And it's you just have to get into that faculty, and that's what we learned. What we've learned working together, it's that something that may seem out of control and random, it's as simple as just sitting down, addressing it, and being like, I have control over this. I can do this when I want. I can focus it. I can turn it off when I want.
Yep.
I can, eject the presence when I want.
Yeah. The thing is that they can see us. Okay. I don't know how they see us, but they can. And so if you are ignoring this, if it's something that you're dealing with and it keeps happening and it scares you, which I understand completely, it is one of those things where the more you ignore it, the worse it's going to get. And that's just facts. Like, it's everyone I know, myself included, has had instances and occurrences where it's like we try real hard to just pretend it didn't happen, and then it just continues to happen. And until you actually confront it, like you said, and actually like take a moment to really accept it and say, okay, well, here are the ground rules. It's like having a roommate.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you're not going to like, so for me, it's like, do not show yourself to me. Don't come in physical form at 3:00 in the freaking morning when I get up to go to the bathroom. Don't do it. Like, I'll have a heart attack and die. Like, then I can't help you. You know, what the hell? Like, don't startle me like that. You know, try to find another way, which I don't, any way they do it's going to scare me. But that particularly scares me a lot when I see them. But, you know, even hearing noises scares me. So like, but it's a lot easier when I hear it rather than see it for me. But you could be the opposite. Maybe you don't want to hear someone calling your name and you'd rather see a person. You know, you just have to say those things. Like I have a friend who wears a hat, like she puts a hat on, and if that hat's on, then she's open for business kind of thing, you know. But if it's not on, don't bother her, because it can come anytime, any place, anywhere. And it tends to be kind of haphazard until you get a better handle on it. Like I don't have those problems anymore lately. I don't have the unwanted random pop-ups because I'm using it more frequently on demand, right? Mm-hmm. And it is an on-demand system too. So it's something that you can activate. It's, you know, on the regular if you continue to keep trying it. Like, but it's something that, you know, be cautioned, like you will get stuff. If this is something that happens to you naturally and you don't try, once you start trying, it's going to happen. Even if you think it won't. Trust me on this, it will. But you know, just be careful and don't let, I would say don't let channeling dictate your life either. Like, you know, you got to live in the present here on this material plane. So keep, you know, don't like wake up every day. I would caution against waking up every day and asking for like, you know, what should I do today kind of stuff. I know people that do that and I'm just like, why? They're not from here. If it's spirits, they're not from here. So why would they know what you're supposed to do? You know? But you're handing over your agency to something else at that point. And you should never do that because then they have control. So make sure you know that you are in control. You have to know it for it to work. So belief is paramount here, right? So yeah, that's what that's all the stuff that I have on this. I mean, there's so much information out there on channeling right now. There's studies going on at the Institute of Noetic Sciences. If you guys are channelers or mediums, you should go onto their website, Institute of Noetic Science. I think it's .org, and you know, look to see what they are doing because you can possibly participate in some research, like I am. You know. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that? You want to participate in some research, Abammon?
Me?
Yeah.
On me? I don't know how much help I would be. I don't know how you research ceremonial technique. I don't know the methodology behind that.
Well, Dean Radin did it in his lab, and it found that it was belief that was the number one component that had to happen.
I don't know. Maybe he can measure spirits in lamps or something.
Yeah. Did 21 grams show up in the lamp? You know, like, is that what happened?
Yeah.
It starts weighing more? That would be weird. We should do that.
We'll see.
Yeah. Fun times.
Yeah. So anyways, thank you guys for joining us. We will see you next week. And if you haven't already, join us on Sundays on this channel where we do a Sunday magical service. They've been going really well. Nice little community. We do ritual purification. We do an astrological forecast for the magical week ahead. We do some readings from esoteric materials that are dependent on what the stars are indicating. And then we do open psychic readings where we answer questions in the live stream. Yep. Yeah, it's a pretty good time. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's the alternative to church.
I mean, it's been really helpful. People have been seeming to enjoy it, and we enjoy doing it. So we like seeing you guys there. We like talking to you guys. Yeah, and please, leave your comments if you have suggestions for topics to cover. This is something that we had both been wanting to cover for a while, but then we also had comments about can you guys do an episode on this? So we definitely take that into consideration, whatever you guys suggest. So if you have something that you really want to learn more about, and you want us to do a deep dive on it and share it with you, let us know. All right.
You've been listening to Discourse, where we venture into the mysteries of esotericism, the occult, and the depths of spiritual exploration. I am Abammon the Great, joined as always by Dr. Anna Stone, bringing adept insights to help guide your journey. Remember, the path of wisdom is illuminated by both knowledge and experience. Until next time, continue your exploration and stay attuned to the unseen.